This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, February 12th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Elon Musk defends his actions as the head of DOGE in the Oval Office. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
President Trump is doubling down on his suggestions that the U.S. can control and redevelop Gaza.
And we're going to keep it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Cold and wet across much of the U.S.
They weren't going to be going to school for the rest of the week.
I'm Clayton Neville.
The Inspector General for USAID is dismissed. We'll take a closer look.
On Wall Street, after a mixed day for stocks yesterday, investors are bracing for the latest on inflation this morning. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
A new round of government worker cuts, this time at the Department of Education.
Steve Bannon avoids jail time by pleading guilty to a fraud charge. Julie Walker, New York.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump signs an executive order to continue shrinking the size of the government workforce and welcomed one of his top advisors, Elon Musk, to defend his actions as the head of DOGE to reporters in the Oval Office. From Washington, our John Stolnis has more.
Standing beside a seated President Trump at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office, his young son sitting on his shoulders at one point, Musk disputed claims his Department of Government Efficiency is unaccountable and lacks transparency.
We post our actions to the DOGE handle on X and to the DOGE website.
Musk was asked about conflicts of interest, specifically regarding potential cuts with the Defense Department, while his company, SpaceX, makes deals with the Pentagon on future projects.
No, because you'd have to look at the individual contract and say, first of all, I'm not the one, filing the contract. It's people at SpaceX or someone who will be putting for the contract.
President Trump defended the work of Musk and his team, saying they have found shocking evidence of wasteful spending.
Billions and billions of dollars in waste, fraud, and abuse. And I think it's very important. And that's one of the reasons I got elected. I say we're going to do that.
Musk maintains the American people who voted for President Trump wants his team to exert stronger scrutiny over the bureaucracy of Washington, D.C. and the federal government.
We have this unelected, fourth unconstitutional branch of government, which is the bureaucracy, which has, in a lot of ways, currently more power than any elected representative. And this is not something that people want. The people voted for major government reform.
Musk admitted he has made some mistakes, such as statements on X critical of the U.S. spending $50 million on condoms for Gaza, not realizing the Gaza in question was not in the Middle East, but in Africa as part of their battle to control HIV/AIDS in that region.
Some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000. I mean, we will make mistakes, but we'll act quickly to correct any mistakes.
An executive order signed by Trump says someone from DOGE will need to approve all new hiring in the federal government and requires agencies hire no more than one new person for every 4 that leave. John Stolnis, Washington.
Both President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu say the ceasefire with Hamas will end on Saturday if all the hostages the terror group is holding are not released. Correspondent Sagar Meghani reports on the meeting with Jordan's king and the president, with Trump insisting the U.S. can take and develop Gaza once the Palestinians are out.
Mr. President, I truly believe that with all the challenges that we have in the Middle East, that I finally see somebody that can take us across the finish line to bring stability, peace, and prosperity to all of us in the region.
President Trump is doubling down on his suggestions that the U.S. can control and redevelop Gaza after it's emptied of Palestinians. It's an audacious plan to essentially remake the Middle East, and the president says it wouldn't cost the U.S. a thing.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it. And we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site.
In the Oval Office.
Take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
Without saying what that is, the president spoke alongside Jordanian King Abdullah, whose nation and others in the Arab world would likely have to agree to accept more Palestinian refugees for the plan to work.
One of the things that we can do right away is take 2,000 children that are either cancer children or in very ill state to Jordan as quickly as possible, and then wait for, I think, the Egyptians to present their plan on how we can work with the president to work on Gaza challenges.
The president yesterday suggested he might withhold U.S. aid to Jordan, Egypt, and others if needed as a way of pressuring them to take more Palestinians. But today,
I don't have to threaten with money. We contribute a lot of money to Jordan and to Egypt, by the way, a lot, to both. But I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that. I do believe we're above that.
And reveled in saying a newly rebuilt Gaza would be exciting for Palestinians.
I think it's going to be something that's going to be magnificent for the Palestinians. They're going to be in love with it. I did very well with real estate. I can tell you about real estate. They're going to be in love with it.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better together. Save 50% on the new Sleep Number limited edition smart bed. Limited time, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. Schools closed. Businesses shut down as snow and ice grips the nation. An update when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. Here with America in the Morning. There is still an abundant amount of snowfall across the nation. With details, here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
A rather large portion of the eastern United States has a rather active Wednesday in store, thanks to the latest in a rapid succession of winter storms. After Tuesday night's storm brought inches of snow to the mid-Atlantic and Northeast, those areas are expected to be closer to the milder side of this storm, with rain instead of snow for places like northern Kentucky and West Virginia. However, a broad swath of at least 1 to 3 inches of snow is expected to build across areas from eastern Colorado into parts of northern Oklahoma, shifting to the north and east across much of the Great Lakes region and into mainly upstate New York, as well as all but coastal southern New England through Thursday. 3 to 6 inches of snow will be more likely in places such as Omaha and Buffalo, with amounts near or above 6 inches into cities like Chicago and Detroit. The far southern portion of the storm brings another round of drenching rain to the south, raising the risk for flooding within an active pattern, as this week may bring up to half a foot or more of rain to some interior sections. The energetic pattern and the latest round of energy from this new storm are also expected to lead to the risk for severe thunderstorms later today from far eastern Texas into just about all of Alabama and Mississippi, as well as the far southeastern corner of Arkansas, where storms may bring strong winds and even some tornadoes. To the west of this sprawling zone of busy weather, the majority of the west looks dry today, at least through the daylight hours. There can be some rain and drizzle over California's central coast and for much of Southern California as well, ahead of the next potent storm that will reach the west coast at night with rain and areas of mountain snow as well. In Seattle, sunshine and a high of 43. For Atlanta, watch for showers throughout the day with a high of 51. The nation's weather, I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. In the Midwest, from Oklahoma to Nebraska and Wisconsin, and in the East, from Virginia to New Jersey, many schools will be closed today as snow and ice continues to impact much of the U.S. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
More than 90 million people under winter weather alerts today. In the D.C. metro area, heavy snow, between 4 to 8 inches in the forecast for parts of the Northeast. Residents stocked up at grocery stores with plans to be inside for a few days.
Just trying to get those little last-minute things, toilet paper, trash bags, milk.
This woman spoke with WUSA TV in D.C. about school being canceled for her kids.
And they're already excited. They said it this morning that they weren't going to be going to school for the rest of the week, so they might have called it.
She was asked about road conditions.
I mean, DPW I know is already out doing their job, so I'm sure the roads are pretty good. It's just the neighborhoods. Hopefully the neighborhoods are a little more cleaner than what they were last time.
Nearly 10 inches of snow fell in West Virginia yesterday, and parts of Kentucky got 6 inches. Kansas also got hit hard north of I-70. Frigid temperatures being felt out west, with temps in the 20s in the Rockies. Further south, it's the wet weather that's a concern for some. Flash flooding possible in Texas and further east. I'm Clayton Neville.
On orders from the White House, the Inspector General of the U.S. Agency for International Development has been fired. Fox News is reporting that USAID Inspector General Paul Martin was dismissed. His firing comes a day after USAID warned that the Trump administration's dismantling of USAID had made it all but impossible to monitor $8.2 billion in humanitarian funds. The organization came under fire after funding questions were raised, including for creating a version of Sesame Street in Iraq and money being sent to groups tied to terror organizations. Oil tariffs likely to raise gasoline prices when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. With the Wednesday Report, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
On Wall Street, after a mixed day for stocks yesterday, investors are bracing for the latest on inflation this morning. I'm Jessica Ettinger. Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for stocks yesterday. Investors are worried about a trade war. President Trump signed an order imposing 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum imports.
These steel and aluminum tariffs are out. And guess what? All the steel makers are up. This is great news for them. They welcome this sort of thing because they have to compete. And just for some facts here, steel and aluminum, we do import a lot of.
We're a net importer.
We are a net importer of both of them. It hurts Canada the most.
By the way, we're not going to build a single new aluminum smelting plant in this country. So in other words, this is an industry where there's kind of global overcapacity and the tariffs are about kind of protecting and subsidizing your domestic producers.
That's CNBC's Mike Santoli and Sarah Eisen. And American drivers should be ready for prices at the pump to go up. Canada is also where the U.S. gets its heavy crude oil. New Trump tariffs on Canadian oil, if they start as expected in 3 weeks, are forecast to raise gas prices in the U.S. Refiners have become increasingly reliant on heavy crude from Canada because it's cheaper, and there are very few viable alternatives. The federal agency that protects American consumers, but has always been a thorn in the side of the banking industry, has had its funding cut and its headquarters shut down. Bank shares were higher yesterday, as the CFPB is the target of Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency.
The CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, is the cop on the beat to go after fraudsters and scammers who cheat Americans out of their hard-earned money. And they have returned billions of dollars to the consumers who have been victims. And in doing so, they've earned some powerful enemies who want to shut them down. And Elon Musk is doing that dirty work on behalf of those fraudsters.
That's Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen speaking out as Fed Chair Jay Powell testified to Capitol Hill. Shares of the big banks were higher yesterday, including JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup, Wells Fargo, and Bank of America. Americans are making some changes for breakfast because of new, higher inflation at the grocery store.
We're seeing consumers make some choices. Egg price is really high, so we begin to see some trade-off. As consumers walk into that grocery store, that headline inflation of things like coffee and eggs is definitely on their minds. We're just seeing more choiceful behavior.
Bank of America's Brian Spillane on CNBC. Egg prices at record highs, if you can find any to buy. And coffee futures have hit record highs for the last few weeks. On today's watch list, we get the latest on inflation. The January CPI Consumer Price Index will be out this morning at 8:30 Eastern. And practice begins today for this weekend's Daytona 500.
Coming up fast, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with a look at Wednesday business. The next government agency to see worker cuts when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. More government worker cuts are slated, this time at the Education Department. Here's Lisa Dwyer with details.
A federal research office that tracks the progress of America's students is being hit with almost $900 million in cuts after Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency found no need for much of its work. Industry groups say at least 169 contracts were suddenly terminated, accounting for much of the Education Department's Institute of Education Sciences work. Advocates for students say the cuts could hurt the accountability of America's education system, affecting low-income students and students of color who historically have fallen behind their peers. Congress gave the Institute about $800 million last year, which is roughly just 1% of the Education Department's annual budget. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
He's not going to prison, but he's angry nonetheless. Steve Bannon has pled guilty in his border wall fraud case. Correspondent Julie Walker reports.
Steve Bannon avoids jail time by pleading guilty to a fraud charge for duping donors who gave money to build a wall along the U.S. southern border. After court, he was asked how he feels.
Like $1 million.
The ally of President Trump calls the case political persecution and wants New York prosecutors investigated.
I'm calling on right now the Attorney General Pam Bondi to begin an immediate criminal investigation into Letitia James, Alvin Bragg.
Bannon calls State Attorney General Letitia James and Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg the biggest threat to President Trump and his agenda. Bragg's office charged Bannon in state court after Trump pardoned him in 2021. Julie Walker, New York.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The U.S. borders are addressing a possible leak and responding to comments made by the Pope. I'm Clayton Neville.
Fed chief appears before the Senate, and the clock's ticking loudly for a Gaza terror group.
Mark Fogel, the American teacher, has been released from a Russian prison. I'm Sue Aller.
Nancy Mace accused her ex-fiancé and his associates of assaulting her and raping others. Ed Donahue, Washington.
AP reporter kicked out of the Oval Office, and New York City's mayor owes Donald Trump a thank you.
Who are some of the returning stars to the SNL 50 comedy special this weekend? I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. America in the Morning continues. Snow and rain dot the landscape today. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
With only a very short gap after some soaking downpours drenched a good portion of the south on Tuesday, today brings yet another fast developing disturbance that will spark plenty of rain from the eastern half or so of Texas through much of the southeast. This rain can be heavy at times from around the Texas-Louisiana border into much of Mississippi and Alabama, with thunderstorms likely from southern Tennessee and central Arkansas southward to the northern suburbs of Houston. As a new batch of energy reloads the atmosphere, the deep moisture already in place over the region will support conditions favorable for severe thunderstorms to develop from just east of Houston across much of the Florida Panhandle and into all but far northern Alabama. Storms in these areas will be able to produce damaging winds, and the repeated downpours over some of the same places may result in areas of flash flooding. Tornadoes will also be possible into the night. Farther to the north, this same storm already ongoing over the Central Plains and parts of the Midwest with snow will leave a fairly large footprint right on the heels of a Tuesday storm that brought several inches of snow to parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, with snow developing a bit farther to the west today, including places like Chicago, where at least 6 inches of snow can be expected through Wednesday night. In fact, 6 to 12 inches of snow appears to be likely from northern Kansas, across most of southern lower Michigan, and into far northern New York and Vermont through Thursday, with at least 1 to 3 inches of snow from the Denver area to extreme northern Oklahoma, most of Nebraska, and points north and eastward through central Wisconsin, northern Pennsylvania, and just about all of New England. For the west, a mainly dry daylight period is in store for Wednesday, outside of some rain over Southern California, before the next storm arrives at night. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. As a number of people illegally in the United States continue to be apprehended and flown out of the nation, Trump administration border czar Tom Homan is speaking out concerning a leak on planned ICE raids and also responding to recent comments on immigration by the Pope, who denounced the actions. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
In an open letter to U.S. Catholic bishops, Pope Francis said that President Trump's plans for mass deportations will end badly. He called the administration's immigration policies cruel and referred to them as a major crisis. Trump border czar Tom Homan spoke to reporters about the Pope's comments.
I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was first communion as a Catholic, confirmation as a Catholic. He ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us from securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
Homan also addressing what he calls a leak in the federal government that he says disrupted ICE raids, including one in Aurora, Colorado, where illegal migrant gang members took over an apartment complex.
We think it's coming from inside, and we know the first leak of Aurora is under current investigation. We think we identified that person.
He spoke with Fox's Hannity.
But I talked to the Deputy Attorney General all this weekend. They've opened up a criminal investigation, and they have promised that not only this person lose their job and lose their pension, they're going to go to jail. They're going to criminally prosecute. So we're all over it. We got the DHS IG investigating the first one. Have a pretty good idea what happened. Can't share a lot because it's under investigation, but the IG's opened up a criminal investigation on the second one. We're sending a strong message.
Homan made clear that the leaks not only compromised the raids, but also the safety of the officers conducting them. I'm Clayton Neville.
Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell is offering reassurance about bank accounts in a Senate hearing amid a Trump administration move to close the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
The Federal Reserve's chairman is trying to reassure Americans amid the Trump administration's takedown of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
If the labor market were to weaken unexpectedly or inflation were to fall more quickly than anticipated, we can ease policy accordingly. We are attentive to the risks on both sides of our dual mandate, and policy is well positioned to deal with the risks and uncertainties that we face.
Amid questioning from Virginia Senator Mark Warner and other Democrats.
Can I tell Mary from Virginia that her bank account is safe?
Fed Chief Jerome Powell said yes.
I think bank accounts overall across the economy are safe.
Noting they're backed by government deposit insurance.
You know, if I had my money in one of those giant banks, I might think about going to a smaller bank where the protection, at least right now, is a whole lot better.
Elizabeth Warren, who pushed to create the CFPB 17 years ago, says scrapping it sends a clear signal.
Cops have been fired. Let the scams begin.
But Republican Pete Ricketts, a former Nebraska governor, says state regulators also oversee banks.
To characterize that nobody's out there looking for consumers, I think, is inaccurate. And we ought not to try and scare consumers right now that somehow this is the case.
Powell told lawmakers the Fed is ready to keep its key interest rate unchanged for now, with the economy in strong shape.
With our policy stance now significantly less restrictive than it had been, and the economy remaining strong, we do not need to be in a hurry to adjust our policy stance.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
Israel's government says the clock is ticking and is again massing its military on the border with Gaza after the terror group Hamas announced it will delay the continued hostage release, accusing Israel without evidence of violating their agreement. As correspondent Ben Thomas reports, both the Israeli Prime Minister and President Trump are enacting a noon Saturday deadline for all remaining hostages, dead and alive, to be set free, or the war will continue.
If all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out.
Hamas accuses Israel of not keeping up its side of the ceasefire deal, continuing to strike targets in Gaza and not allowing enough aid into the territory, and says it's delaying any further hostage releases.
I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are.
That drew this comment from President Trump.
Saturday at 12, we want them all back. I'm speaking for myself. Israel can override it. But from myself, Saturday at 12 o'clock, and if they're not here, all hell is going to break out.
Israel denies Hamas's allegations and has put the army on high alert. There have been demonstrations in Israel where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's under heavy pressure after 3 Israelis freed Saturday came home emaciated.
It looked like something out of the 1930s. It's an absolute disgrace.
And Trump suggests that's the reason Hamas has put further releases on hold.
What you see is probably the best, because they want to send people that look at least healthy. And that's not healthy. These people have been badly hurt. I don't want to do 2, and then we do another 2 in another week, and then we do 4 in 3 weeks. No. They either have them out by Saturday at 12 o'clock, or all bets are off.
Ben Thomas, Washington.
Celebration as a U.S. citizen is released from a Russian prison. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back here with America in the Morning. After talks between President Trump and Russian leader Vladimir Putin, it was announced that American teacher Mark Fogel, who was serving a 14-year prison sentence for drug possession, was on his way home back to America. Sue Aller reports that the Trump administration said another American prisoner abroad will soon step foot back on American soil.
Freed, Mark Fogel, the American teacher, has been released from a Russian prison. Fogel was detained for over 3 years. He was arrested in 2021 for possessing a small amount of medical marijuana. Despite being prescribed the medication in the United States, it's illegal in Russia, and he was sentenced to 14 years in prison. Fogel's release was negotiated by the White House. President Trump held an impromptu news conference in the Oval Office. And this is what he had to say.
We'll be at the White House tonight at about 10 o'clock. If you want to come over, you can say hello to him.
Did you receive anything in return?
Not much.
The details of Fogel's release haven't been fully disclosed. The White House described the exchange as a show of good faith.
I hope that's the beginning of a relationship where we can end that war and millions of people can stop being killed. They've lost millions of people.
Fogel had remained in Russian custody even after U.S. authorities won freedom for other high-profile American detainees, such as Marine veteran Paul Whelan and WNBA star Brittany Griner. I'm Sue Aller.
In an extraordinary speech on the floor of the House of Representatives, Congresswoman Nancy Mace accused her ex-fiancé and others of assault and sexual abuse. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports.
On the House floor, South Carolina Republican Nancy Mace accused her ex-fiancé and his associates of assaulting her and raping others. Mace spoke for nearly an hour.
I'm going scorched earth.
In 2023, Mace said she accidentally uncovered some of the most heinous crimes against women imaginable. Non-consensual photos and videos of women and underage girls. On one video,
I heard my voice. I zoomed in on the video, and that woman was me.
Mace mentioned 4 men as being involved, including Patrick Bryant, who was her fiancé until 2023. She also criticized the South Carolina Attorney General, Alan Wilson, for not taking action. Wilson says Mace's comments are categorically false. Bryant told the AP he categorically denies the allegations. The AP wasn't able to independently verify Mace's claims. Ed Donahue, Washington.
The Associated Press announced the White House barred its reporter from Tuesday's Oval Office executive order signing because of the AP-style guidance on using the name Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America. In a statement released by the Associated Press, the news agency's executive editor Julie Pace wrote, quote, "Limiting our access to the Oval Office based on the content of AP's speech not only severely impedes the public's access to independent news, it plainly violates the First Amendment," end quote. The White House Correspondents Association called the White House action unacceptable. Just within the past few days, Apple changed the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America on its maps, as did Google Maps. President Trump, by executive order on the first day of his second term, made that name change. Shifting gears, that ex-FEMA worker alleged to have directed staff to avoid houses that displayed Trump signs last year may have violated the Hatch Act. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
A federal agency is looking to take action against a former Federal Emergency Management Agency worker who directed workers helping hurricane survivors to avoid homes with yard signs supporting President Donald Trump. The complaint was filed by the Office of Special Counsel, whose leader was fired last week by Trump and reinstated by a federal judge after he sued the Republican president. It accuses the worker of violating the Hatch Act, which restricts the partisan political activities of government workers. The worker, who was fired in November, defended her actions in media interviews, saying she was framed and was simply following orders. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
BuzzFeed, known for their commentary on all things tech, has decided to create their own social media platform, but not based on algorithms. Chuck Palm has that story in today's Tech News.
BuzzFeed has announced yesterday that they are developing their own social media platform. The company announced that they're developing this platform to counter the current negativity that's all over the internet. They have yet to confirm a launch date, but they did say the official name for the platform will be BF Island. BuzzFeed is allowing users to join on a wait list and will select those users to focus on developing a finished product based on their feedback. BuzzFeed founder and CEO Jonah Peretti wrote in a manifesto that was published on Tuesday as part of the announcement that he was fed up with giving the platform companies advice on how to fix the internet, and if we want it done right, we're going to have to do it ourselves. Peretti also confirmed BuzzFeed's new social media platform will use AI to give users agency instead of stealing their agency. Peretti also criticized the big companies like TikTok and Meta for neglecting their users' well-being by prioritizing an addictive AI-driven algorithm over human curation. I'm Chuck Palm.
In with sports, here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
College basketball last night, 7 of the AP top 10 in action, 6 of them on the road. Number 1, Auburn bounced back at Vanderbilt 80-68. The Tigers coming off their first SEC loss of the season over the weekend. They're now 22-2 overall. Number 2, Alabama routed Texas 103-80. That sets up Saturday's showdown in Tuscaloosa versus Auburn. Third-ranked Florida handled number 22 Mississippi State, while number 5 Tennessee fell at 15th-ranked Kentucky. And number 7 Purdue was a loser at number 20 Michigan. 8th-ranked Texas A&M took care of Georgia, and number 10 Iowa State was a winner at UCF. NBA, the Knicks got 40 from Karl Anthony Towns in their 128-115 win over the Pacers. Raptors slipped past the Sixers 106-103, 33 for Scotty Barnes. Pistons romped over the Bulls 132-92. Malik Beasley led all scorers with 24 points off the Detroit bench in just 16 minutes. And the Grizzlies fought off the Suns 119-112. No NHL games on Tuesday. The Four Nations face-off begins tonight in Montreal with Canada against Sweden. The U.S. faces Finland on Thursday in the round robin. And baseball's pitchers and catchers are reporting this week. Still a few free agents out there to be had as well. The World Series champion Dodgers are fine-tuning. They brought back utility man Kike Hernandez on a 1-year contract and reportedly are close to a deal for lefty Clayton Kershaw to return for an 18th season in L.A. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. Strings pulled, mayor off the hook. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues with Donald Trump and the Justice Department to thank. The federal case against Eric Adams, mayor of New York City, is being dismissed. Adams speaks out about what he's doing next. Details from correspondent Julie Walker.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams thanks President Trump's Justice Department for ordering the local bribery case against him dismissed and is pledging to regain the trust of voters.
I never ask anyone to break the law on my behalf or on behalf of my campaign. Never. And I absolutely never traded my power as an elected official for any personal benefit.
The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan had called the case against the Democrats strong. Adams had called it political.
I thank the Justice Department for its honesty. Now, we can put this cruel episode behind us and focus entirely on the future of our city. It's time to move forward.
Trump's acting Deputy Attorney General Emil Bove on Monday directed federal prosecutors to dismiss the charges, saying they were disrupting the mayor's ability to assist in Trump's crackdown on immigration and crime. Julie Walker, New York.
Saturday Night Live is celebrating its 50th anniversary this week, and a number of the not ready for primetime celebrities are along for the ride. Kevin Carr reports.
50 years ago, a group of performers declared not ready for prime time hit the airwaves.
Live from New York, it's Saturday Night!
Saturday Night offered a hodgepodge of sketch comedy, monologues, and musical guests, and it became a sensation. Last year, the film Saturday Night chronicled the humble beginnings of the show.
Over 90 minutes of live television by a group of 20-year-olds.
This week, NBC is celebrating 5 decades of Saturday Night Live with a 3-hour special on Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific.
1, 2, 3, go!
A cavalcade of former cast members have recently been announced for the special. These include Eddie Murphy, Adam Sandler, Chevy Chase, Kristen Wiig, and Will Ferrell.
I drive a Dodge Stratus!
Their roles are still a mystery, though expect to revisit some classic characters.
Would you be mine? Won't you be mine? I wish you was my neighbor.
Some of the cast members already announced include Amy Poehler, Andy Samberg, Chris Rock, Garrett Morris, Jane Curtin, and Lorraine Newman.
We would enjoy consuming mass quantities of any substance you have to offer. Yes, I dig liquid.
Some special guests include Adam Driver, Paul Simon, Steve Martin, and Tom Hanks.
Thanks, Mr. Martin. Oh, please, call me Mr. Steve Martin.
Of course, some cast members are no longer with us, so expect to look back at their iconic sketches as well.
Cheeseburger, 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 cheeseburger!
Good night, my little Rosanna.
You're living in a van down by the river.
I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.